Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you very much for clicking on this video. I'm super excited because today I'm going to be showing you all of my supplies that I use to do oil pastel artworks. As I mentioned in my last video, oil pastel has become my favorite medium and my medium of choice every time I go to do art right now. It is just the best. I really wanted to share with you guys all of the things that I use so you guys can also get into it and get some recommendations about supplies. You really don't need too much supplies for oil pastels, but these are just the things that I use. And I'll also be showing you all of my oil pastel works that I've done thus far in my sketchbooks. And so yeah, let's get right into it. So this is the sketchbook that I'm currently using. It looks like this. So this sketchbook is 6 by 8 inches and it's from Michaels. And this is the Artist Loft tree sketchbook. That's what it's called. It had a little tree sticker on it there, but I peeled that off. And then I used some white acrylic paint and I saw this design on Pinterest and I just painted it on. And I like personalizing my sketchbooks like that. Anyways, I've been working in this sketchbook around 6 months. I've been working in this sketchbook and it's pretty much the primary sketchbook I use. I haven't really been doing much else other than oil pastels. Now I'll give you guys a tour of the artworks in the sketchbook. So this first page, my friend gave me a sticker and so I really liked it because I love Van Gogh. And so I put it there. This was the first time I ever used the set of pastels that I'll be showing you. This is just a deer. And then the next one is this swan. This is a recreation of a Van Gogh piece. It's his cypress trees. I love his work because of all the brush strokes. I think that's why I love oil pastels so much, is because that's really the type of artwork that I like making, is very much like you can see the brush strokes and you can see like the texture. I love that oil pastels give me the ability to do that, and they allow you to do it so easily, honestly. Then I have this bunny. I just looked up a picture of a bunny that I thought was cute and I decided to do it. This is a favorite of mine. It's obviously Van Gogh's Starry Night. This one took a little while, but I'm super happy with how it turned out. I love making artworks with really bright colors. I think it's so fun. Then this is a Claude Monet piece. I think it's like a sunset or sunrise, people on a river. This was me trying out some new Van Gogh pastels that I got. And then these are some tiger lilies. I don't think I did as much layering as I could have, but. And then I did the falling angel. I loved all the colors. I love incorporating new colors or like pops of color into places that maybe wouldn't have color, like such as like the skin. Like there's some greens, some yellows, some peaches, and that's what I love so much about oil pastels, is you can really easily do that. So next is this Kingfisher, also by Van Gogh. My friend went to the Netherlands and she got to go to the real Van Gogh museum, and she brought me back this postcard. And so I decided to draw a recreation of it. And I love drawing recreations. This one is very not much my style, but I was kind of interested in drawing a dark scene with like a candle in it. And I found a picture on Pinterest again, and this is what I got. Next up is another Van Gogh recreation. It's of his oranges, and I was really gravitated to drawing this one because of all of those different marks. I, again, Oil pastels allow you to do it so easily, and I love the streakiness. Next up, I felt like doing some fish. I think fish are such a fun subject matter to do in any art. They're just so interesting. My personal favorite subject matters are nature and animals, I think, and recreating famous artworks. I also really like portraits. I like doing things that are like life-based, I think. So this is just a bunch of fish. I was able to add some really fun colors into it. Yeah, I like doing the scales too. It's fun to add texture, and you can do that really easily with oil pastels. Next, this is just some oil pastel hibiscuses that I did. Yeah, I really just wanted to draw something bright and pretty, and I just love them. They're like sunset flowers, and I really like this type of composition too. I think the dimensions of this sketchbook really allow for this type of composition to work really well in it. Next up is recreation of Van Gogh's roses. I like to switch up doing finished pieces in my sketchbook, and then also just some like those hibiscuses where I can do it within a few hours and stuff. Next up, I wanted to do pomegranates. So I kind of did the composition the same as the hibiscuses, but pomegranates. I love the detail I was able to put into this. And the colors are so pretty. Next up, I did another variation of the flowers, this time tiger lilies. I really love the colors. I actually did a tutorial on this one, so if you want to learn how to draw a tiger lily in oil pastels, you can check out my TikTok there. Next up, I did this duck. I don't know, there's something about animals that it's just like, the look on his face is just so cute. These greens were really fun to work with too. This is my most recent work. It's this fish. I wanted to do a more close-up version of a fish and really like get more into the details, get to do the eye really fun and the scales. Anyways, that is my sketchbook, and now we'll get into the supplies I use for oil pastels. Okay, so we'll start with the sketchbooks and the paper that I use. So as I mentioned before, this is the Artist Loft tree sketchbook from Michaels. And then my other sketchbook that I did some works in, this was my prior sketchbook, which is finished. This was actually my first ever oil pastel drawing. I think it's of Rembrandt. Yeah, I really like recreating famous portraits. This portrait of Van Gogh. This portrait of John Sargent. This is a portrait, I think it's of the Diego something. This is the Starry Night over the Rhone by Van Gogh. As you can see in this sketchbook, I just used wax paper in between. This is another portrait. And then I kind of did a series of apples. So I did an apple that was sliced, an eaten apple, and a full apple. And this was more experimental. I really wanted to work with layering. I did this sleeping duckling. He was so cute. I just had to do him. This is a recreation of Claude Monet's water lilies. I really got into these lily pads and water lilies, so I did another one. This is a recreation of one of Monet's water lilies. This one, I actually followed a tutorial on how to do an apple. And my final page of the sketchbook was just this really whimsical landscape. Those are my original oil pastel drawings. To get into the paper, this sketchbook is the A6 Studio Series Field Sketchbook. It's off of Amazon. I originally got it, I think, in chapters, but I've looked online and you can get it on Amazon and it's like $10. So it's super affordable, which I love, and it's very small. It's A6 size, so it's the size of my hand. Paperweight, I'll talk about that. The paperweight I recommend and I've used for oil pastels is between 110 and 140 GSM. So this book here is 140 GSM and this book here is 110 GSM. So the higher the GSM, the thicker the paper. So this paper is a little thicker, this one's a bit thinner. I don't really see too much of a difference with them other than in this sketchbook, I only do one piece per page. I don't do double-sided, whereas here I would do double-sided, and I'm not too sure how double-sided would look in this, if you would be able to see colors through, but that is personal preference. This was more of a experimental sketchbook, so I wasn't too worried about what the backs of the papers looked like. But yeah, in this one I'm a bit more careful because the works I'm doing in this one are more special to me. Another thing that you want your paper to have is a good tooth. And by tooth is the texture of the paper. Kind of like, almost like sandpaper has a lot of tooth. You want your paper to have a bit of tooth because the tooth is where the oil pastels will grab onto, and you really want to be able to layer your oil pastels because that's how you get the effect of all of those colors and the mixing. So if you have a smooth piece of paper and you put your oil pastels on, it's going to completely fill up that paper, and then the layering isn't going to work as well because there's nothing for that pastel to hold onto, and it's just going to smear. So as you can see, when you have a paper with nice tooth, you can get lots of different layers. And I'll show you the tooth on this paper. This one, it's not even too much of a tooth, honestly, but there's enough. So you don't have to look for a huge tooth. So things for paper I suggest is somewhere between 110 and 140 GSM with a bit of a tooth. Okay, next up I'll be showing you the actual oil pastel supplies that I use. So we'll start with the oil pastels themselves. These are my all-time favorite oil pastels. These are amazing, so amazing. I love them so much. Now these are actually not the first oil pastels that I started with. I actually don't have them here right now, but I'll insert a picture of the ones I got. They are this same brand, but they are the MUNGYO, they're not the gallery brand, they are the student grade brand. And I initially got those. Those are what created all of the artworks in this sketchbook. All of the artworks in this sketchbook have been made with these oil pastels. Because I was just starting out with oil pastels, I got a 24 set and I got the student grade. They were like $10 from my local art store, and it was great because I wanted to try oil pastels and it was really not a huge investment of money at all. They worked great and they still do work great. They are much harder and less creamy than these ones, more crayon-like, but they are still oil pastels. That really allowed me to develop my skills in oil pastels, play around with them. Yeah, I just was able to experiment and create all of those works. Then I wanted ones that were more creamy and could layer and more colors. So last October I got these. They're off of Amazon for around, I think $50 or so. So a bit more expensive, but I will tell you that it is definitely worth it. But I will say, to begin with, start with a 24 pack of student grade. I would definitely recommend the MUNGYO student grade ones and test them, experiment, get to know what it feels like to work with oil pastels. And then once you decide if you really like them, then I 100% recommend getting this set. I consider it a bigger set, but at some point there can be too many colors. This set is missing some pastels, but overall this is great and you get lots of colors. So So I made a color chart so I can see what each of the colors look like on paper. This really helps me when I'm choosing out colors. And here are the pastels themselves. So as you can see, there's 48, and you get a really great variety of colors in this set. These are so pigmented, layer beautifully, and yeah, I cannot recommend these ones enough. These are so great because they're the perfect balance between a hard and soft oil pastel. They are soft enough to get the texture and the blendability, but they're not so soft that they're melting in your hands and making a mess and making them hard to work with. Next up, this is my other supplies box for my oil pastels, which I actually just got this weekend when I went shopping at B. John's, which was my first video. It's this beautiful bamboo box. I'll show you the other oil pastels that I use. So these are the single oil pastels that I've bought. These are the Van Gogh oil pastels. The MUNGYO pack didn't have too many very light pastels, so I went and just bought some single ones. These are definitely not as creamy. They're much more firm and chalky, but they do have their place in my artworks. I use them definitely as a base. They are really great for an initial sketch. Also for blending because it won't give too much pigment. I like them, but not as much as the MUNGYO ones. And these are some other colors that I have. A sunflower yellow and a warm gray, white, this other white to try out. Again, I would just use these as a base or blending. I think it's great to have a bunch of different types of oil pastels of different textures and softnesses because the firmer ones are great for a base layer while the softer ones are great for layering on top and really getting that texture. This last one is a Paul Reubens white. I actually got this off of Amazon in a pack of 5, but they're quite big sticks, so I just put one in here. These Paul Reubens oil pastels are really great. I've only tried the white in this, but these are much creamier than the MUNGYO ones. And so I use this as my finishing white because it's much softer, so I can just lay it right on top of any works and it just adds the perfect finishing touch. Because I find the MUNGYO white is great for blending and adding lightness, but for final highlights, it's not as creamy as this one to get those very bright whites. Now we'll just move on to the tools. Washi tape is great for borders of works that you want to have clean edges. Yeah, I got these when I was in Scotland at this little store that was for stationery. They're just the MT brand and they're great. They don't rip off the paper and they're super pretty colors. So for drafting up my works, as I said, I'll use some of the harder pastels, but for my initial drawings, I got this Faber Castell Pitt Pastel. I think this is the shade. It's this very light, cool gray. I ended up getting this because I was originally using like a pencil to draft my works, but the oil pastel would smudge the graphite and muddy the colors, which I didn't like. So I ended up getting just this really light pastel that would blend in with the pastels as I layered. So this is great. And then I'll use a kneaded eraser or just this tiny eraser to clean up any excess lines or lighten the lines. I'll just press this on so they're not as visible. And the last tool really is a palette knife, which I actually don't use too much, but it's great. Sometimes you'll get a color on top. Either it'll get there purposefully or accidentally, and you don't really love it. So you can use this and like scrape it off. You can also use it with the pastels to grab a bit of pastel and lay it on. I haven't experimented too much using thick amounts of pastels and using palette knife and scraping it on, but yeah, maybe I'll try that in the future. This is the brand of it, but honestly, any palette knife really would work. Here are the last materials that I use when doing oil pastels. First of all, I use paper towel. This is great because oil pastels can be a bit messy, and in between each color use, I wipe my pastel off because when you're layering, it picks up some of the undercolor and that can transfer when you start to apply somewhere else, which you don't necessarily want because it's gonna muddy up your work. So just wipe it off in between and it cleans your pastels perfectly. Another thing I use is just a blank sheet of paper to test out oil pastel colors and see what it looks like on the page. As you can see, this was for my fish drawing. I used the sheet to test out some colors and wipe off my pastels. And then lastly, this is the tracing paper that I use. It's Strathmore tracing paper. Any tracing paper would work. Again, wax paper would even do, but I do love this tracing paper. It's very thin, the tape sticks to it, and it avoids my works from getting smudged. So it does the job perfectly. So that was all of my oil pastel supplies that I use. I really hope that this video was helpful and you found a few products that you might want to try and got a couple of tips that you will use while you create. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate you staying until the end, and until next time, happy creating.